My name is Brian Lawrence. I'm the Solutions Engineering Manager here at NowSecure. Biggest gap that we see out there from customers is a great question. And I think that the biggest thing that we see out in the world is that the old school doesn't work anymore. You know, people think that they can apply these techniques and methodologies that were used for web app testing for a long time and perhaps effectively for that segment. But running a simple scan or looking at some code, unfortunately, just doesn't protect your billion-dollar enterprise's mobile app anymore. There's a whole package that gets put together, and that's what's released to the world, which is completely different from web application testing, for instance. So talking about that, educating those clients about what goes into those packages and the risk that it exposes them to is probably our biggest gap. When we're talking about kind of how mobile is changing, if this was the stock market, they would be saying there's a bubble because there's a disparity now between the presentation layer and the security testing being done to account for those. So we have this long history of testing web applications, but now that more and more users are going mobile, we've crossed that threshold. But there's a huge disparity in investment and expertise in web application testing versus mobile security testing. So when we're on customer calls, talking about vulnerabilities in their apps and out in the wild, I think that the biggest one that we see that's a problem is data in motion. So being able, having an attacker being able to essentially insert themselves into that data stream and potentially manipulate things, but certainly have visibility into private information, potentially damaging information potentially as well. So I think that's the biggest piece of that, because it is different for mobile devices, and a lot of them are doing they're doing testing that's good enough for web apps, but they're leaving a hole exposed for mobile. So when talking to customers and looking at large data sets too, for applications that we've examined, one of the big problems that we're seeing is hostname verification. So when I'm using a web app, browsing the web, my browser is actually handling that piece of security for me. So web app developers and security testers haven't had to account for that in the past. With mobile applications, there is no innate functionality to be able to do that, so it has to be built in at the application level, and that's something that just is a knowledge gap, and we see mobile applications out there not performing that action just as a result of not knowing it's even needed. So what really resonates with customers when we show them the capabilities of our tool set is just the level of technology and execution that we have. So there have actually been calls that I've been on in the past where the people we were talking to didn't actually believe that we had achieved what we were saying. So being on the bleeding edge, having this cool way to basically automate what has historically been a very manual process, is as soon as that realization hits a customer, that you can see them kind of sit back like, whoa, and just kind of letting that sink in is really cool. And then they're like, man, I can use this here, and then they get excited about it, which is really fun to see.